telling, man, every now and then I go to Egypt, dog, and I see some cats I used to run with, and they come up to me, man, they be like, yo, show, man, let's get back to some dirt, and I be like, hold up, pump your brakes, you're doing 90 to 30. And I'm like, look, I can't do that no more. And them cats be like, why? I gotta articulate real well to them, man. I just like, yo, man, Christ died for my sins, I love the Lord, I got a spirit in me. And to sum it all up, man, it's because I'm in love. I'm in love. And they like, you in love with who? I'm like, with a high love. The most high God, man, I am that I am. Jehovah.
What's up, young kings? Time for your more motivation. Decided to jump on real quick today. It's a beautiful day outside. I would be sitting outside while I'm doing this video, but there's gusts of wind and sometimes it may interfere with the audio on the video. So I decided just to sit in the Jeep and go over this quick lesson for you. Been an interesting weekend. Week in review. Had a wonderful Mother's Day with my lady and her mom. Went out to eat in Muskegon. Went off the water and just an amazing time. This morning was the first time that I did water aerobics in the swimming pool. So getting conditioning in the pool is a lot different. So I can tell swimming is going to be an amazing cardio event for me, especially since I can't run anymore. So looking forward to continuing on in that vein. Announcement for you all. This is the last week of me being 46. I turned 47 on Sunday. So what I'm going to do for my birthday, so to speak, I'm going to give you all a gift. I turned 47 on Sunday, so sometime between now and Sunday, I'm going to give you 47 jewels on things that I have learned throughout my 47 rotations around the sun. So sometime between the end of this video and Sunday, it's my intent to get on here and give you the 47 jewels, rules to live by, things I learned along the way in my 47 years of living. So I'm going to try to get through all 47. It may end up being a few videos if I expound, and I'll see what the Spirit says as I go through it. But next week, no, it'll be this week. So sometime between now and Sunday, I'll get on. I'm not going to be on long today. I just wanted to jump on real quick. As something was jumped in my spirit, like it's a beautiful day outside. I'm not sure if you can see it all the way out there, but it's beautiful outside, and the seasons is changing. I mean, there's changes happening, growth is happening, development is happening, and it's not just the environment, but it's in our lives as well. So there's an invitation that was given to me, and I'm going to extend it to you, just for you to process and see if it's something that you're interested in. And the invitation came down from the Most High, and it says, if you had to choose between what you wanted and what was best for you, which one would you choose? And I know you may be thinking, what I want is what's best for me. But that's not always the case. So if you had to choose between what you wanted and what was best for you, which one would you choose? And I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are in the comments, because there's some duality to that question, and there's some complexity within it. Kind of like, do you have an appetite for destruction or an appetite for production? Because there's some saying out there that says everything that feels bad to you is not bad for you, and everything that feels good to you is not good for you. And there's some hidden jewels in there. And understanding like the art of being able to decide, do you want to be a master of your fate and run everything? Because living 47 years, I can say that I've been running my life the way I want to run it. I've been making decisions, especially major decisions in my life, and people who know me know that I can be very hard-headed at times, and I can listen to advice, but in the end, I'm going to make my own decision. But I can even say, even me making my own decision and me being me, and I have at times chose what was best for me, as opposed to what was good for me. I know that's kind of complex, and it's kind of complex and mind-boggling when I say that. So if you had to choose, which one would you choose? What you wanted or what was best for you? And I'm going to surrender what I want in order for the greater good, and to reach my higher version. Because sometimes you can be blindsided by things that you're not aware of. And it's the art of surrendering, to the Most High. Because a lot of times when we communicate with the Most High through the art of prayer or meditation or whatever means that you have to communicate with the Most High God, we're telling God our shopping list. And I said this a few times on a few videos, like, if God gives you everything you want, when you want it, and how you want it, who's God? I mean, it's like a spiritual ATM. You punch in a few numbers, you tell God what you want, and he spits out your request like he's a genie in a bottle. So there's an element in there that says, are you competent enough to run your own life the way you want it? And I know it's kind of sound like it's contradictory to some of the statements that I made of just living your life the way you want it, but really it's mirroring it to the original intent when you were created, because we were created in his image. And if we were created in his image, then there's some attributes of God that's in us. So we are like the Lord G God or kings, and we're delegated. And when you have delegated authority to operate in this physical world, sometimes you can have a misunderstanding as though you have absolute authority and that you can supersede, the natural laws and stuff of that nature. And that's not the case. It's delegated authority. And in order to operate in that delegated authority, you got to operate within the boundaries of what the authority that the person delegated to you. So we've been created in this image. There's some things that the Most High God wants for our lives that we haven't realized that is in the best interest of us. And there's some things that we want from a physical perspective, from a selfish analysis of our needs, wants, and desires, that we inundate our prayer with these requests, and we're trying to get God to be subjected to our needs, our desires, and our wants. And let it never be so, because he's the Most High God, and if he's the Most High, that means there's no one higher. And if you think you are, you may just be high, but you ain't the Most High. So if you had to choose between what you wanted, what was best for you, I know this invitation is open for us all right now. As the season change, activities outside is going to increase, and people are going to get more into lavish living, and doing things that may be less than productive for them, but they're going to kind of under the umbrella of entertainment. And there's nothing wrong with having fun with your life. I think life, it's meant to be lived and it's meant to be fun. But there's times where it's meant to be sacrificed and meant to be surrendered. So there's some relationships that you're maybe in that you want to be in that relationship, but it may not be best for you to be in that relationship. There may be some employment opportunities that presented, and although it may enhance your economic resources, it may not be beneficial for you to be operating in that employment sector, So you got to choose between what you want and what's best for you. In an ideal world, kind of have that nevertheless moment. I know when Yeshua was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he was praying, went to the Father to pray, he was saying, not my will, let thy will be done. Kind of that, like, I know what I want out of, if it was up to me, the end state will be this. This is what I want. And this is what he was praying for. Like, if there was any other way, let this cup pass by me. Like, if you can find a detour around this way, I don't want to endure what I'm about to endure. So if there's any other way, let this cup pass by me. And that was his prayer. And then he got to a point where he communicated what he wanted from the Father and what his desires were, but then he didn't stop there. There was that nevertheless, let thy will be done. And I think there's an invitation right now for that question that I just asked you. Like, What you want? Do you want what you want, or do you want what's best for you? Are you going to be mature enough to have a nevertheless type moment? Do you have enough discipline to say, nevertheless, let thy will be done, in spite of it may costing you your life? And when I'm talking about your life, it's not just from a physical aspect of it. It may be times that you need to pull away from some things, and those things that you're pulling away from may be extremely exciting. It may be, fun. It may not be nothing wrong in itself, but it may be some time to pull back from some things and to assess and to have that nevertheless moment. I always used to wonder why vegetables couldn't taste like candy, or it couldn't taste good. And the things that are good for the body sometimes are the less pleasing to eat. It takes a struggle to eat a lot of vegetables. I'm a carnivore, man. I love a steak. I love chicken. I love meat. So vegetables at times, although they're the side dish, sometimes I don't even get to the side. I just want meat. But the body needs its nutrients from those vegetables. So you got to get to a point where you don't just do what feels good, what looks good, what tastes good. You got to get to a point where you got to do what's best for you. And sometimes what's best for you is to say no to you. Learn to say no to yourself and that appetite. So you got to learn if you got an appetite for destruction or an appetite for production, because you are the one that's going to suffer from that appetite. Eating a lot of the candies and the stuff of that nature and meat, that's how, especially in the melanated community, they have the high blood pressure, they have, diabetes. Those are all self-induced diseases that could be easily preventable if you were to use moderation and discipline. But the issue is that when we start doing what we want, we don't use moderation and discipline. We are using abundance. We get into access. We get into overflow of the things that we're supposed to be having just a little bit of. So we got to learn how to manage our appetite, so it's not the appetite of destruction. Because if you're not careful, your fun could be fatal. It could be truly fatal to you under the umbrella of just, hey, I'm living my best life. And you don't want to get to a point where you're just living your best life. As I mentioned several videos ago, probably late last year when I was going through a lot, get to a point where you will live your blessed life. Because I think if you get into, not only think, I know, if you get into the oneness with the one that created you and the Most High God, you're going to be blessed and highly favored. And you got to get to a point where you much rather have your blessed life than your best life. And it's about relearning who you are and whose you are, because there's some identity crisis that's still going on. We're still on this reforming our reality. So we're still growing and maturing in our kingship and learning how to be kings and learn how not to use our kingship in a dictatorship in an abusive type way, but in an empowering way that not only are we growing, but we're forcing everybody around us to grow as well. So if people around you are not growing, you got to wonder, like, okay, am I creating an environment that's conducive to people really flourishing? And if they're flourishing, am I creating an environment where they can be celebrated and not competed against? And that's where kind of how I got into this video. In the season of deciding, there's also going to be an exposure that's happening. There's going to be a revealing to you, and you're going to have to make some decisions based off what's revealed to you. There's going to be some people that come into your presence that they maybe only need to be there on a limited basis, if they're at all. There's going to be some motives and hidden agendas that's exposed. And if you're not careful, you will overlook that red flag in the interest of maintaining a relationship or a friendship, or just because you're lonely and this or that. And you may get to a point where you ignore that red flag, like, oh, that wasn't nothing. I just, you take a little note of it, but you're not really applying the information so you can make sound decisions. So there's going to be some things that come and reveal to you, and what you do with that information is going to decide, Are you going to get what's best for you, or do you want to get what you want? Because there's maybe an invitation for you to go somewhere, and this person maybe is not keeping it a 100 all the time. Maybe they're like 72%. They're not all bad. I mean, it's nothing where I'm saying you need to cut everybody off, but I'm saying that you need to proceed with wisdom and understanding that person does not have your best interests at heart, and you need to deal with them on a sparingly basis. So once that information is presented, now you got to make a decision on how you govern your actions accordingly. Because this is not an easy walk, and sometimes where you need to go, everybody can't go. There's a season, there's going to be some separation happening, and if you want to do what's best for you, you will celebrate that separation. When God reveals that to you, you would start to acknowledge, okay, Lord, I see what you're doing. Okay, I'm in agreement and I'm in obedience, because that's what you're supposed to do. Like when God spoke to Abraham and he told him to get from the country into a place that he would send him, the next thing you know, Abraham's leaving. He's like, okay, he started moving in that direction. When God spoke to Noah, told him to start building the ark, and he gave him specific instructions, next thing you know, Noah's building and he's moving in that direction. So when things are starting to be revealed and directions are given to you, your next step is obedience, even before you understand. And that's when it comes down to trusting the Most High God. And if he's the Most High God, you got to understand that there's no time that's restricting him. He knows what's best. He sees everything you've been through. He sees what you're going through, and he sees what's up ahead. So he's like the one that's helping you navigate. He sees into the future, and if you make this decision, then this is going to be the outcome. And if you take this road, then this is going to be the outcome. So once again, if you had to make that choice of, what you wanted versus what was best for you, what would you choose? What have you been choosing? Because I know there's at times I'm a prisoner of the moment where I want what I want and I want it now. And there's a saying out there, say, if you want something bad, that's exactly how you're going to get it, bad. So understand that everything that's expedient maybe not be excellent, and what takes and when it comes to excellent, it's not done in an overnight process. There is a due process to reform you, to refine you, to make sure that you understand the process. So when you're going through your journey, take note of what you're going through and be able to apply those lessons. So I'm coming out of the Army after 28 years of service, but the lesson I learned along the way, I can go to another organization and start off at the bottom, because I know how to start from the bottom and work my way up. I've already proven that I can do that. So now I got a level of confidence. It's not cockiness, it's not arrogance, it's just a level of assurity that, okay, if I put my head to the plow, I know that I went from a private to a lieutenant colonel, so then I can start off at an organization, maybe as a regular employee, but in a few years I'll advance, and before it's over, I'll be running it. And that's not saying like it's an indictment on anybody that's competing or trying to do the exact same thing, because I don't have to compete with anybody, because what's for you is for you, and what's for me is for me. So my prayer when I started this journey of transition was, God, close doors that cannot be opened and open doors that cannot be closed. So when that door closes, yeah, it may be what I wanted, and maybe the Lord just says no. There's a saying out there that says, if you ask someone a question, a favor, and they don't have the ability to say no without you being offended, you weren't asking them, you were demanding. And that's how it is, the same attitude with God. When you ask God for something in prayer, I remember the job a few months back was in Japan, and I prayed and I wanted that job. And I thought it would have been fine for me to have it, me knowing me and what I wanted, the sense of adventure. But God said no. And most people are like, oh, you missed the mark. You were saying you were going to go to Japan, you was going to do this, and are you off? Like, nah, I prayed and I asked God. God makes the final decision. He can say yes or no. And he so happens to said no. So if you ask someone a question, they don't have the ability to say no. You're not asking, you're demanding. And are you demanding the Most High God respond to you the way you want to do it? Who's God? So if you had to choose between what you wanted and what was best, I said go for the best. Because you are the best. And only the best for the best. Because truly, what God has for you is more than you can ask, think, or imagine. You know, it's not, you can't outgive God. You can't manage your life better than God can. So that's where it comes into surrendering and making sure that you don't get married to any predecision that God approved. I mean, there's times that I got excited about things before I even got the answer back from the Father. And I'm looking like, okay, I feel like this is in my spirit. I want to go there. And I'm telling God, like, God, you can bless me over there. This is where I want to be blessed at. I want to be doing this. And at times, God is like, hey, slow down. I hear you, but slow down. Not yet, not right now. And sometimes it's just flat out no, you know? And sometimes it's even hell no. Like, that's going to be sending you in a direction that I don't want. I need to close that door. So when that door closes, it's like, you got to understand that's God's protection. There's a lot of protection in the no, you know? There's a lot of wisdom in being able, and maturity in being able to accept a no at times. So this season that's about to happen right now is going to be a defining moment in our lives. And I said defining moment because you got to be careful with this message, because you got to understand where you at in your season and in your trials. You got to understand, some of you want to fight and it may be time to surrender. And some of you may be ready to surrender and it may be time to fight. So you got to understand and get with the Father and see which one is going to be best for you, you know, or which one you want to do. So some of you are wanting to continue in a relationship and it may be time for that to end. Some of you may be wanting to end the relationship and it's time for you to fight and make it sure it continues. So this is a difficult message to communicate to you, but it's also an essential one, because you got to start knowing you. And it talks about in Jeremiah 17:9 that the heart is deceitfully evil and wicked. Who can know it? Like, just because it's in your heart, and you know, people say God knows my heart. That's not a good thing, you know, because there's some deceitful things in there. Your heart can grasp some things that it was never supposed to be attached to. So how do you make sure that your heart don't betray it? You have a nevertheless moment. You have one of those Gethsemane moments and says, Lord, this is what I will to do, but nevertheless, let thy will be done. So I'm going to wrap up, Young Kings. Keep on the lookout. I'm going to drop 47 tips. And I tell you this, if you live by these 47, this is not laws or rules and stuff, but it's just guiding principles or pillars that I have learned on my 47 rotations. If you watch those videos and you start applying those lessons to your life, I'm telling you, you're going to find yourself advancing. You're going to find yourself being more mature. You're going to find yourself benefiting from a lot of mistakes that I made over my 47, because it wasn't perfect. At times it was downright ugly, but it was my life and I love it. Be well, Young Kings.
Danger. Once you get into the desert, there's no going back, said the camel driver. And when you can't go back, you have to worry only about the best way of moving forward. The rest is up to Allah, including the danger.